Close your eyes and picture a Lotus. Fast, lightweight, hugging the tarmac, perhaps winding through a rain-soaked British B-road, every ounce of its engineering aimed at one thing: driving purity. Now open them and look at this, a hulking 5-meter-long all-electric SUV called the Eletre, crowned with that sacred Lotus badge. For die-hard fans, this isn't just a surprise, it's a shockwave. But what if I told you that the very future of Lotus, the legendary creator of the Elise and the Esprit, now hangs on this radical electric SUV? Could the Eletre be the savior Lotus desperately needs, or a betrayal so profound it risks everything the brand ever stood for? Today we're diving deep into one of the boldest gambles in the auto industry, a story where heritage, money, and technology collide, and where the quiet hum of an EV may be the sound not of loss, but rebirth. Strap in. The Lotus Eletre is more than just a car. It's a flashpoint for the future of performance, luxury, and brand identity itself. How did we get here? To answer that, we need to take a step back and understand why the Eletre even exists, and what's really at stake for Lotus. Let's rewind to the roots. Founded in 1952 by the legendary Colin Chapman, Lotus built its reputation preaching a single, almost religious commandment: simplify, then add lightness. Through the 1960s and beyond, the brand delivered some of the nimblest, most exhilarating cars on the planet, machines that triumphed in Formula One and became poster children for driving enthusiasts everywhere. Think the iconic Elan, the Esprit, the Elise, all defined by cutting-edge engineering and feather-light weight. But victory comes at a price. For decades, Lotus's devotion to driving purity and its refusal to chase trends left it perpetually teetering on the edge of bankruptcy. By the 2000s, even as rivals like Porsche and Ferrari expanded, Lotus seemed stuck, brilliant at building dream cars, disastrous at making healthy profits. And then the ground shifted. In 2017, Chinese auto giant Geely, already the owner of Volvo and a rising force in electrification, acquired a majority stake in Lotus. Suddenly, the boutique British brand had deep pockets, global infrastructure, and crucially, a mandate to grow. But how? The answer, increasingly obvious in the 21st century, was the SUV. Where sports cars win your heart, SUVs win your wallet. Look at Porsche. The Cayenne was derided as heresy by purists when it launched in 2002, yet it went on to outsell the entire Porsche sports car range combined, funding the next generation of 911s and Caymans. Could Lotus repeat the trick? The Eletre is Lotus's answer. Developed under Geely's umbrella, it's their moonshot at the luxury electric SUV market, a sector exploding thanks to Tesla, Mercedes, Porsche, and BMW. But unlike anything Lotus has built before, the Eletre is massive, high-tech, and designed as much for the Chinese megacities as for English country lanes. Let's get specific. This isn't just a marketing exercise. The Eletre sits on an all-new 800-volt architecture designed from scratch for premium EVs. At 513 meters long and tipping the scales at nearly 2.6 metric tons, it's Lotus's heaviest car by a mile. But it's also one of the fastest. The base and S models put out a monstrous 603 horsepower from dual electric motors, launching from 0 to 62 mph in just 4.5 seconds. The flagship R takes things into supercar territory, 905 horsepower and 726 lb-ft of torque. Inside, the Eletre is a revelation. Lotus was never known for luxury, yet this cabin is straight from a sci-fi vision. A 15.1-inch infotainment display dominates the dash, while the 29-inch head-up display brings driving information into your line of sight. The Hyper OS system, built specifically for the Eletre, manages everything from music to adaptive cruise control, ambient lighting, adjustable air suspension, torque vectoring, the list goes on. And there's more. Adjustable rear spoilers and diffusers for active aerodynamics, carbon ceramic brakes worthy of a race car, 4- or 5-seat configurations, a 373-mile WLTP range on some models, rapid charging courtesy of the 800V system. One expert at Motor Trend put it simply: the 2025 Lotus Eletre has the domineering road presence, fit and finish, and equipment levels to underpin its hefty price tag. All this tech doesn't come cheap. The Eletre S starts at nearly $150,000, positioning it between the high-performance BMW iX and the ultra-luxurious Lamborghini Urus, but crucially, with its own unique flavor. No direct rival quite matches its blend of performance and extravagance at this price point. As one reviewer mused, "It's a car that polarizes opinion. and it's certainly not a traditional Lotus, but it is a sign of the times. Yet for all the glamour, controversy dogs every step. Purists cry foul, claiming that a Lotus badge belongs only on featherweight, track-focused sports cars. Critics point to the Eletre's weight, questioning whether a Lotus can ever feel agile at 5,700 pounds. The Eletre is probably the best-handling electric SUV in this sector, wrote Top Gear, though that's working within the confines of the raw physics. And then there's the existential debate. By moving production to Wuhan, China, and targeting global SUV buyers, is Lotus sacrificing its British soul on the altar of globalization? The Eletre represents a seismic shift, not just for Lotus, but for the very definition of a performance car in the EV age. One expert at Autocar summed it up. The Eletre represents a bold step for Lotus, blending performance with practicality in a way that challenges traditional brand values. But what if this is exactly what Lotus needs? After all, market realities are brutal. Take risks or perish. In 2006, Lotus flirted with SUV ideas in the form of the APX concept. It went nowhere, but the seed was planted. Now, with the full force of Geely and global EV momentum, the Eletre is a live experiment. Financial survival is at stake. Attracting new customers, many of whom have never considered Lotus before, could be the key to funding future sports cars. Just as the Porsche Cayenne filled the company's coffers, so the Eletre might bankroll Lotus's next era of innovation. Yet that calculation cuts both ways. Alienate old fans, and the brand could lose its soul. As one executive noted off the record, if we get this wrong, there may not be a Lotus left to save. The challenge is colossal. The luxury electric SUV market is a battlefield swarming with rivals. Tesla's Model X, Porsche's Taycan Cross Turismo, Mercedes' EQE SUV, Audi's e-tron, and BMW's iX. Each brings enormous resources, loyal customer bases, and relentless innovation. To succeed, the Eletre must not just compete, it must stand out. Is it up to the task? Early reviews are cautiously optimistic. The handling is praised, the technology dazzles, the interior stuns, but there's no escaping the car's physics. It isn't as agile as Lotus's sports cars, admits Car and Driver. And some reviewers are left wondering, can any SUV, no matter how advanced, ever truly replicate the Lotus magic? Behind the scenes, there are other risks. Battery prices are volatile. Supply chains, still disrupted post-pandemic, pose constant threats. And competition is intensifying. New models, faster charging, better range, smarter software. If Lotus is too slow to update or fails to differentiate on software and driving experience, the Eletre could quickly become yesterday's news. Most importantly, the question of identity looms. If Lotus becomes just another luxury EV brand, does simplify and add lightness mean anything anymore? Or is the brand, as one critic put it, selling out its legacy for a shot at commercial relevance? It all comes down to the next few years. Will the Eletre strike the balance between legacy and innovation, pleasing both new buyers and die-hard fans? Will it carve out a space in an overcrowded market, or vanish as just another failed experiment? And here's the million-dollar question. Will the Eletre's commercial success bankroll a new generation of thrilling, lightweight Lotus sports cars? Or will it end up as the point Lotus lost its way for good? We'll explore these possibilities, the financial numbers, the evolving market, and the future of Lotus in the second half. But first, ask yourself, can a British legend survive by becoming something entirely new? So, with the dust far from settled, let's leap forward and imagine just where this bold experiment might lead. If the Eletre is, as some say, Lotus's biggest gamble since its founding, what's at stake in the years ahead? There are a few possible roads Lotus could travel. One scenario is the fairy tale. The Eletre sells in droves, not just in China where Geely's influence is massive, but in Europe, North America, and the Middle East, markets where luxury EV buyers are hungry for the next status symbol. Revenue soars. With deep pockets, Lotus revives its sports car lineup, reinvests in radical engineering, maybe even launches a lightweight electric coupe with tech lessons borrowed from the Eletre's architecture. The Lotus badge, instead of fading into irrelevance, stands for innovation, refinement, and performance. In short, a total rebirth fit for the electric age. But there are shadows, too. Imagine a scenario where the Eletre fails to capture hearts and wallets. Critics point to the eye-watering price tag, the limited range compared to Tesla's Model X, and a design that, while striking, alienates both purists and pragmatists. If sales falter, Lotus finds itself in a squeeze, estranged from its old fans, but not welcome in the upper echelons of luxury or mass-market EVs either. A worst case, the brand becomes a forgotten badge, a footnote in the transformation of Geely's global empire. And then there's the middle path. The Eletre achieves moderate success, carving out a niche among customers who want exclusivity, technology, and a dash of British heritage. Lotus, in this case, morphs into something akin to what Porsche became after the Cayenne, no longer a purist's secret, but a multifaceted prestige brand. This is what industry analysts quietly expect: steady sales, slow brand evolution, and a seat at the table with the world's high-tech automakers. But what about the risks along the way? The landscape for luxury electric SUVs is already fiercely competitive, and it's only going to get tougher. Porsche, BMW, Mercedes, Tesla, Audi, and now newcomers like Lucid are all racing to claim the same customers. Battery technology evolves at a breakneck pace. What's cutting edge today can feel obsolete in 2 years. There's also the question of supply chains, rising lithium and cobalt prices, global shipping bottlenecks, and the ever-present threat of political upheaval or regulatory changes. For a company that survived near bankruptcy more than once, even a short misstep could have major consequences. And looming over it all is the delicate matter of Lotus's soul. Can heritage survive reinvention? Some say it's already lost. Others believe it's evolving, just as it did when the Elise replaced the Esprit, or when Lotus dabbled in racing sedans nearly 60 years ago. Let's turn to some voices from the industry. As one expert at electrifying.com put it, "It's a car that polarizes opinion, and it's certainly not a traditional Lotus, but it is a sign of the times." And as Top Gear sharply notes, the Eletre is probably the best handling electric SUV in this sector. That's working within the confines of the raw physics. This is the heart of the story. The Eletre isn't a capitulation. It's Lotus attempting to write its next chapter using new tools, even as it risks upsetting the very fans who got it here. For a moment, consider the fate of Porsche. When the Cayenne arrived, it was mocked for betraying everything Porsche once represented. Fast forward 2 decades. The Cayenne and its SUV siblings bankroll the 911, fund motorsport victories, and let Porsche experiment with electric performance. Could Lotus be on the verge of its own reinvention? But there's a key difference. Porsche's sports cars never disappeared. For Lotus, the Eletre arrives just as the old lineup was winding down. There's no guarantee that new Lotus sports cars, gas or electric, will come next. Still, the Eletre is packed with promise. Consider its hardware. The 800-volt battery system means ultra-fast charging. Think 350 kilowatts of DC power, slashing recharge stops. Active aerodynamics, air suspension, torque vectoring, and a stunning Hyper-OS infotainment suite. These are not the hallmarks of a company resting on its legacy. The interior, by all accounts, is world-class. Jewel-like details, customizable ambient lighting, and clever ergonomic touches that rival the best from Italy and Germany. But what does all this mean for you, the enthusiast, the curious driver, or simply anyone fascinated by the wild, shifting landscape of automotive history? There are some practical takeaways anyone can draw from Lotus's big bet. First, never underestimate the power of reinvention. The brands that endure are rarely those that cling stubbornly to the past. They're the ones that adapt, even if it means alienating part of their fan base. If you're considering an electric SUV, don't be blinded by old stereotypes. The Eletre, like the Mustang Mach-E or the Porsche Taycan, proves that icons can be reimagined. Don't dismiss new models just because their badges conjure up old images. Drive them, research the technology, compare them not only to the legends but also to their current competition. You might be surprised at which brands actually deliver an exciting experience, and which are just trading on nostalgia. Second, look at how Lotus has embraced technology, not just as an optional upgrade, but as the very essence of the Eletre's identity. From its carbon ceramic brakes to its adaptive chassis, the Eletre is a showcase for innovation. That's a lesson for anyone in any industry, the ability to pivot, to push boundaries, and to make bold choices, even in the face of criticism. And third, pay attention to the larger forces at play. The electrification of transportation is not a fad, it's a global shift. And even the most storied, tradition-bound companies must find a way to participate or risk extinction. For consumers, this means more choice, better technology, and, eventually, more affordable performance than ever before. If you're a Lotus fan, you might lament the passing of the Elise or Evora era, but at the same time, you can't help marvel at the daring required to challenge the status quo. Maybe the Eletre is not a car for every Lotus enthusiast, but perhaps, just perhaps, it's for a new generation who never saw themselves in a traditional sports car to begin with. Which leads us back to the question from the very beginning. Can the Eletre save Lotus without costing it its soul? The truth is, there's no easy answer. The Eletre might become Lotus's financial backbone, funding new sports cars or entirely new EV concepts. Or yes, the brand risks fading into the crowd, one more badge on a sea of luxury crossovers. But there's a secret at the heart of Lotus's gamble, one that's rarely spoken aloud. Every revolution in the car world began with outrage. Lightweight sports cars were unthinkable in the age of heavy grand tourers. The idea of a practical Porsche was sacrilege. Yet time and again, those risks paid off, not right away, but when the world was finally ready to see ingenuity as evolution, not betrayal. Lotus's soul, perhaps, was never only about lightness or lap times. It was about the pursuit of the edge, the willingness to try, fail, and try again, always chasing a new frontier. So, as the Eletre whirs quietly into drive, maybe it's not Lotus's soul on the line after all. Maybe, just maybe, it's what keeps their story alive. If you've enjoyed this deep dive, let us know what you think. Is the Eletre a bold new chapter or a bridge too far? Would you consider a luxury electric SUV with a Lotus badge, or does heritage matter more than innovation? Sound off in the comments below. We want to hear your take. And if you learned something new, hit that like button, subscribe for more deep tech and auto analysis, and don't forget to check out our next episode where we reveal why another famous